The vision for this pumpkin is it's essentially gonna be a house, and I'm gonna have like a little secondary room coming off the side and hopefully like a little chimney. I've been super into that kind of cottagecore aesthetic that people keep talking about recently. So that's what I'm gonna try and achieve here. But as you know, I'm pretty woeful at carving pumpkins, so it should be fun. A few weeks ago, the Crafty Club voted to have me answer questions while I made a pie, and it was just too much for one video. So what I've done is I've decided to split those videos in two. Today's video, I'm going to answer questions while I carve this pumpkin. If you remember from last year, I did a live stream where I carved a pumpkin, and I hadn't carved a pumpkin since I was a kid. It was kind of an infuriating process, but I think it's just because I didn't have the foresight to really do any kind of research whatsoever on it. So now that I have learned and lived and carved a pumpkin, now I have a kit that is specifically for carving pumpkins. And you can see there's like a scoop, there's like a chisel, all of these really fun tools that are also adult hand sized as opposed to like a little kid hand sized, which was the problem last year. I also have an idea for what I want my pumpkin to look like. And while I just sit and enjoy the process of carving this pumpkin, I am going to take your questions. And it looks like we have a lot of really good ones. I am going to warn you before I start, I'm not gonna get to everyone's question because I had so many. Some of them honestly deserve videos on their own. Here we are, it's Halloween, and of course, tonight, the official Old-Fashioned AF Discord server is coming your way right after this video is over. So make sure that you watch to the end, and at the end of it, I will post it in the comments box because, of course, this is a preview just for you guys. I'm in the comments right now talking with you. Crafty Club members do have some special places inside the server that they can go to that nobody else is able to gain access to. So if you want to become a member of the Crafty Club and support this channel, then you can do so in the link below. Let's get into our first question before I hit the ground running on this pumpkin. So Laura asks, how did you get into vintage looks? You know what? I feel like long sleeves and a very long necklace are a really bad idea for this, so I'm gonna take these off. And rings too. I think it was probably only a matter of time before I started wearing vintage fashion, but I've always been interested in at least the look of the vintage aesthetic since before it was cool to be. Like as a kid, I used to collect old photos of starlets from, you know, the golden age of cinema. I was always a fan of Mary Pickford and of Shirley Temple, and I used to watch silent films in my teenage years on the weekends because we had a pretty robust library where I lived where they had a bunch of old-fashioned films that I could just get, and so I watched a lot of pre-code stuff as well. And just as time went by and as it became pretty clear to me in, you know, the kind of early days of the internet that I was not alone in this fascination, I just started experimenting more and more and more. Until finally, here I am today, and I still sometimes wear vintage fashion, most of the time in fact, but I also like a good pair of leggings occasionally too. Seeds. Carrie asks, well, 3 very important questions that she thinks you can tell a lot about a person. Number 1, what is your favorite movie? I mean, I think we all know that my favorite movie is Marie Antoinette. I don't think that there can be any question of that whatsoever. I love the color palettes. I love everything about the aesthetics of that movie. But I also kind of love that at the time that it was released, it just made learning about history really cool for people my age and slightly younger. And I was already very much a history buff, but as someone who felt very much alone in that endeavor when I was younger, it was just really nice for a lot of people to be really into that film with me. And that feeling has still kind of carried on in a way. Carrie's second question is, what was your first concert? And my first concert was Aerosmith. My parents took me when I was, gosh, I want to say 14 or 15. I can't remember the exact age, but I know I wasn't driving age yet. And myself and a friend were invited to come along with my parents to that concert, and it was really fun. And then her third question is, what was the last concert that you went to? And this was really hard to remember because I think as I get older, my short-term memory is going, which is not great. The last concert that I figure I went to was Tracy Ann Campbell. She's one of my favorite artists, and I've loved Camera Obscura since day one. And so myself and a friend went and saw her, and it was fantastic and transformative. And it was actually the second time I had seen her because the first time was with Camera Obscura, probably 10 years earlier than that. And they're just terrific. She is terrific. No matter what she does, then I will always follow it. So, Tracy Ann Campbell. Our next question is from Jay Joy, who asks, why did you go to college in England? I studied abroad there because Lancaster was the first university to get back with me, but I also applied to a university in India, so I wasn't necessarily looking to go to England specifically, just to study abroad somewhere that was interesting. Kat asks, if you could be a fly on the wall at any event or period in history, which one would it be and why? That's a really tough question. I'm really interested in the day-to-day activities of everyone in every socioeconomic status throughout history. So it's more about what kinds of activities I'd want to watch. And honestly, it has a lot to do with sewing and with methodology when it came to cooking, and little details that we haven't been able to find in terms of extant pieces or garments or features of old things. I want to know how people did stuff. That's why living history is such an important thing to me, because you kind of almost are a fly on the wall if you're donning the garb and you're thinking and trying to act like you live in a specific historic period. Jonathan asks, is your husband as hilarious in person as he is in his videos? Y'all are so amazing together. I could not imagine a cuter couple. Well, first off, thank you. I feel like there are lots of cute couples in the world, and I'm happy to count us as one of them, I suppose. He is hilarious. He makes me laugh every day. Shauna asks, was it love at first sight with Lawrence? I remember liking him from the start. I know that he and I had fun dating together, and I don't remember ever there being a time when I didn't love him, so I guess. Megan asks, do I ever worry that Lawrence might be a spy? What kind of spy? Laura asks, how much do you really like British food? Well, the answer is simple, a lot. Because my personal feeling on the matter is that British food, just like with any other food that came from a specific region, has some kind of ancient quality to it that has been passed down through the ages. And in fact, a lot of it was passed down to the early Americas in terms of the Anglo-Saxon world of America, at least. So there is a lot of ingrained history there, not just in Britain, but also in my family when they settled here in the early 18th century. So I have a vested interest in studying and also eating darn good British food, right? Carrie asks, do you ever have to defend the fact that you enjoy old-fashioned subject matter? You know what? If people think that I should defend it, I honestly don't care. I've always loved history. I love the study of it. I love living history. I love vintage fashion. And I probably will not change my ways since I am well into my 30s at this point. So, you know what? If somebody thinks that whatever my lifestyle is not for them, fine. But defending it is not something that I am interested in caring about at this point. Kat asks, what's your favorite period of dress to make? I don't have a specific period of dress that I love to make necessarily, but I do love doing finishing work. So if you give me something like buttons to sew on or embroidery, any kind of like handwork that you would do hand sewing with, that's the stuff that I live for. So as a result of that, Basically any time period before the sewing machine would probably be something that I'm super into. But that said, there's plenty of finishing work to be had since the sewing machine was invented too. So I can't really put my finger on one specific time period. I'm just down for all of it. Dawn asks, what does the AF stand for in your name? What do you think it stands for? Mandy asks, what classes did you take in Britain? I know this is going to come as a shock to all of you, but I took history classes in Britain. I was a double major in my undergraduate degree in theater and in history. And so when I went to Lancaster, I went there specifically because I knew that they had a really, really good history department. And that's what I took. Kat asks, what's your favorite period of dress to wear? That is a little easier to answer just because I've only really worn 2 periods of dress outside of vintage clothing, which I feel like is a whole other subject because there are so many things to choose from in the 20th century that's another topic for another day. But in terms of specific period clothing, I've only ever worn early Renaissance, specifically like Italian worker woman Renaissance, and 1830s when I worked as a historical interpreter. So I would say actually between those two, my 1830s dress and the underpinnings of the 1830s was a lot more fun to wear just because there's so much that is more involved in that, believe it or not. But I'm game for anything, and I've always wanted to try to do something from the late 1800s too, because that's kind of when the pinnacle of fashion was, in my opinion. Jenny Wan Kenobi asks, is British or American life better in your opinion? That's a really hard subject, and I will tell you right now that if you had asked me that 5 years ago, I probably would have said that I miss British life more than I loved living here. That could have been because I was stuck in Indiana still, I don't know. But I loved living in the UK, and I also love living here in Chicago, so I really don't know the answer to that. There are pros and cons to both places, and while I would probably move back to Britain in a heartbeat, I like my situation now as well. Kate asks, if money was no object, where would you live? America, the UK, and where exactly in what choice? Probably the best of both worlds. I might have a house here, might have a house in the UK, maybe one in, I don't know, Denmark or Sweden, somewhere where there's lots of snow because I like snow. So I'd probably just have houses all over the place and I would just go wherever it strikes my fancy, honestly. We've always talked about the idea of moving to the Lake District. So I think if I had to choose one place, Lake District would probably be it. Let It Rain asks the story of how you two met. Yeah, that's not a question, but I'll answer it anyway. We were in a show together. We did the Edinburgh Fringe together with the same show, and we just have always been together ever since. Well, that's all of the questions for right now. If I didn't get to your question, then don't worry. That doesn't mean that I'm not thinking about it and it's not coming at some point in the future. It just means that it wasn't perhaps the best time for that specific question in this video. I am so excited because as soon as this video has finished, you are going to be in for a big treat. You're gonna hopefully be able to come on over to Discord here in just a moment. I should be posting it to the chat here in just a few seconds. I also have some other really exciting videos in the works, so make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Certainly comment and let me know what you carved your pumpkin as this year. I will see you on Discord. Happy Halloween, everyone.